The chilling event I'm about to recount unfolded in 2017. I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter, living with my Aunt Truly, the only person who stood by me in my time of need. She was the mother I never had, supporting both me and my unborn child. Given my advanced pregnancy, she rarely allowed me to lift a finger, but then she suddenly fell ill with a fever. With no other choice, I had to drive to the store for some snacks to satisfy my intense cravings. Hating to be a helpless damsel, I assured her I'd be perfectly fine. From her bed, she simply told me to be careful. I offered a reassuring smile, then locked the door behind me, climbed into her car, and headed for the Dollar Tree outlet, a mere 3 blocks away. Once there, I grabbed a shopping cart and began my leisurely stroll, wandering down aisle after aisle, searching for my desired munchies. My eyes landed on a bag of chips on the very top shelf. No matter how much I stretched, my pregnant body weight made reaching them impossible. Suddenly, a voice startled me from behind. "Let me help you." I turned to see an old lady, her face softened by a kind smile. I returned her smile and stepped aside, allowing her to easily retrieve the chips. When she handed them over, I thanked her again. She gently caressed my cheek, then her eyes darted around, confusion clouding them. "Where's your husband, dear?" she asked. "I don't have one," I replied. "Oh, then the father of the child. He's not in the picture," I mumbled. "I see." Realizing I was alone, her eyebrows furrowed. She scanned the surroundings once more, then spoke with an unsettling concern in her voice. "You shouldn't be out alone in your condition." "No, my aunt takes care of me. But she fell ill, so I had to come today," I explained. "Okay, so how long have you been living with your aunt?" "A couple of months now." "And what about your parents?" By this point, her questions were making me increasingly uncomfortable. I tried to walk away, but she clung to me like a shadow, following me down every aisle, prying with more questions. I found myself telling her about my parents and everything else she asked. Now I realized the colossal mistake that was, but then I simply thought she was genuinely concerned. She continued, offering advice and suggestions on how to care for my baby and myself. One detail about her truly unnerved me: her eyes. They barely blinked, constantly shifting, observing every corner of the Dollar Tree. There weren't many people in the store. I picked up some juice boxes, and that's when the woman leaned in, her voice a creepy whisper. "For your cravings, huh? If I were your aunt, I would have taken much better care of you." "She already takes good care of me," I countered, annoyance rising. "Well, you're here alone, and this condition proves otherwise," she retorted. I felt a surge of anger as this old woman relentlessly shamed my aunt. I tried to subtly shake her off, but she ignored my cues. I turned and walked in the opposite direction, but she followed. This time, a cold dread began to creep in. "Why don't you come with me?" she asked, completely out of the blue, a wide, unsettling smile fixed on her face, as if inviting a stranger home was the most normal thing to do. "Excuse me," I stammered. "I could take good care of you and your baby. I have this big farmhouse on the outskirts. Trust me, you and your baby will have the best life." "I have to go home now," I said, turning sharply to leave. But the old lady seized my cart, bringing me to a halt. Her smile widened unnervingly. "Okay, let's drive to your place first so you can gather your things, then I'll take you to my place." I couldn't hold back my panic any longer. I yanked my cart free from her grasp, a sudden movement that seemed to genuinely shock her, making her step back. "I am not interested in living with you. My aunt takes care of me. Now please leave me alone." Her face hardened, all warmth vanishing as she heard my angry outburst. She looked down for a moment, then met my eyes again, a truly chilling grin spreading across her features. Her voice, when she spoke, was a spine-tingling whisper. "But what if something happens to you? Your aunt isn't with you now. Life is very uncertain, you know." What do you mean? You're a freak. Stay the hell away from me or I'll report you to the cops." I didn't wait another second, fleeing her presence. As I walked away, I glanced back, but she was gone. My eyes frantically searched for her throughout the rest of my time inside Dollar Tree, but she was nowhere to be seen. After checking out, a Dollar Tree employee kindly helped me carry my bag to my car, wishing me a good day before heading back inside. I found myself alone in the empty parking lot. All I wanted was to speed home, but my panic-stricken mind suddenly developed an intense urge to pee. Being pregnant, driving while desperately holding it was an impossible feat. I had no choice but to find a restroom. The public restrooms inside Dollar Tree were at the far end of the store, and I absolutely did not want to risk encountering that creepy old lady again. So I opted for the smaller washroom in the parking lot. I locked my car and hurried to the left corner of the lot. It was a small, 3-stall restroom, empty when I entered. I chose the first stall and was mid-business when I heard the washroom door creak open, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps. At first, I didn't react, anyone could use these. But then the footsteps abruptly stopped. Instantly alert and terrified, I strained to hear any sound, but there was only a suffocating silence. Sweat beaded on my skin as I stared at the stall door. Until I heard heavy breathing directly above me. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Slowly, agonizingly, I lifted my eyes, following the sound. As my gaze reached the partition wall of the stall next to mine, my stomach plummeted. It was her asterisk. The same old lady from Dollar Tree. She was standing on the toilet seat, peering over the top at me. I will never ever forget that moment. Her wide, terrifying eyes watched me silently. She didn't utter a single word, just stared with an utterly expressionless face. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. Then she spoke, her voice flat. "You need to come with me. I'll take good care of you and your baby. Please, just leave us alone. Do you want money?" "I can give you some money," I stammered. "Keep your freaking money," she hissed, her voice now laced with menace. "I want your baby." With that, she stretched out her hands, trying to grab me. I shot up, screaming for my life, flung open the stall door, and burst out in a blind panic. The old lady dropped from the toilet seat and chased me out of the washroom. It was the most terrifying, difficult run of my life. I sprinted towards my car, her maniacal laughter echoing behind me. "Come here, I want your baby. I would take good care of you too. Come to me," she shrieked, somehow. I managed to scramble into the car and slam the door shut just as she reached me. Her hand got caught in the door. I heard bones crack, followed by a piercing scream as my car door broke her wrist. But I didn't care. I floored the accelerator, speeding away, leaving her furious yells behind. "This is not the end, just remember that." I collapsed into tears the moment I reached home. My aunt immediately called the police, recounting everything that had happened with that woman at Dollar Tree. The police never found her, but a week later, I read a missing persons report in the newspaper. It was about a pregnant woman in her late 20s who had gone shopping at that very Dollar Tree outlet one afternoon. She hasn't been seen since. No one knows what became of her or her baby. I strongly believe that the creepy old woman had something to do with that disappearance. Asterisk. I was about 13 when this experience unfolded. My parents were in the throes of a divorce, making our home anything but peaceful. In our small neighborhood, friends were hard to come by, so I often lost myself in sketching. I'd save my pocket money from odd jobs to buy art supplies, nurturing the budding artist within. Dollar Tree was my haven for these treasures, everything there wonderfully cheap and accessible. The store lay just 3 blocks away, nestled beside a gas station on the highway. I'd cycle there 2 or 3 times a week. It was a sprawling place, packed with an incredible array of household goods and so much more. One afternoon, around 3 o'clock, I made my usual trip. I favored this hour because the store was almost empty. Parking my bike discreetly in a corner, I stepped inside. Long aisles stacked high with every imaginable item stretched before me. The cashier was half asleep behind his desk. I guess there were only 2 or 3 other shoppers besides me. I began to browse, drawn to the art and crafts section, which was having a sale. I picked up a new set of charcoal pencils and some acrylic paint, planning to decorate a flower pot. I was so engrossed in my shopping that I didn't notice someone standing right behind me until I heard a sudden hiccup. Startled, I spun around. There, practically nose to nose with me in the narrow aisle, stood a man dressed as Jack Sparrow, just like in the famous Johnny Depp movie. Feeling an immediate wave of discomfort, I instinctively stepped back a little. "I'm sorry, I didn't see you there," I mumbled. But I saw you," he slurred back. At first I thought he was just playing the part, but the way those hiccups kept interrupting him, combined with his dilated pupils and the strong reek of whiskey on his clothes, quickly made me realize he was utterly drunk. "Why are you dressed like that?" I asked, my voice laced with bewilderment. "Just like one like Jack Sparrow," he replied, his mouth hanging open in exaggerated shock, as if my question was utterly preposterous. He just stared at me, eyes wide, mouth agape, truly unsettling. Then in a greasy voice he added, "But I thought I am Jack Sparrow." "What?" I blurted out, a nervous laugh escaping me. "Oh, you are laughing so you don't believe me, huh?" Suddenly his face contorted. His eyebrows furrowed, and I could tell my sarcastic laugh had deeply offended him. Unsure how to answer such a ridiculous question from a drunk man, I stood there, a frozen, awkward smile on my face. "Answer your captain, you scurvy dog," he demanded. "You are the shittiest Jack Sparrow I've ever seen in my whole life," I snapped, turning to walk away, hoping he'd just leave me alone. Thankfully, he didn't follow. After a while, I headed to the cashier. I quickly scanned the store, relieved to see the man was nowhere in sight. Feeling a surge of relief, I exited the store. That's when my nightmare truly began. I distinctly remembered where I'd parked my bike, but to my horror it wasn't there. My stomach dropped as a burst of spine-chilling laughter echoed through the air, followed by the distinct ring of a bicycle bell. The sounds came from the dark, distant corner of the parking lot. There was no one else around to ask for help. But I was stubborn. I wasn't going home without my bike. With trembling steps, I ventured into the parking lot. A few cars were scattered about, and the single overhead light flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to the unsettling gloom, but what I finally saw made my skin crawl. The creepy Jack Sparrow was perched on my bike, parked right at the very end of the lot. I couldn't make out his features clearly, but I was certain he was grinning menacingly when he spotted me approaching. He suddenly shrieked, "You need to find yourself a girl mate." With that, he pedaled furiously, hurtling towards me like a bullet. Having reached my breaking point, I screamed and ran for my life. I heard his maniacal laughter behind me. He was chasing me on my own bike, and I had no idea why. All I knew was that if he caught me, he wouldn't let me go unharmed. "I'm going to catch you, I'm going to catch you," he roared. Leaving the parking lot behind, I sprinted down the highway. Just my luck, not a single car was in sight. Panicked, I ran in the opposite direction, away from Dollar Tree. The man was now riding my bike on the highway, and his laughter grew even louder. He was clearly enjoying terrorizing me. The scorching heat was draining my energy, making me tired and slow. I could hear the psycho Sparrow pedaling faster and faster. It felt like I would never escape him. I was on the verge of collapsing in the middle of the road when, miraculously, I saw a large truck approaching. Seeing it, the will to live surged back into my heart. I began waving my arms wildly, screaming at the top of my lungs. "Stop, please stop, I need help, stop." The truck driver noticed me and blared his horn. I glanced back and saw the man had stopped pedaling. He looked at me, then at the truck, then back at me, his face twisting in realization that the truck would stop and I was no longer an easy target. His eyes burned with pure hatred, the evil joy vanishing from his face. Slowly, he got off my bike, then kicked it savagely, sending it crashing onto the concrete. My bicycle bell shattered. He then turned and bolted into the woods. When the truck driver pulled over and picked me up, along with my mangled bike, I was utterly exhausted, drenched in sweat, gasping for air. "Please, just take me home," I pleaded. Beyond giving him directions, I couldn't utter another word. When he dropped me off, I thanked him profusely and rushed straight to my room. For almost a week, I didn't dare step outside. Every time I heard a bicycle bell, a wave of goosebumps would wash over me. I've never shared this story before because I knew no one would take it seriously. They'd all assume the crazy Jack Sparrow guy was just joking. But not a single night passes without me reliving the nightmare of that psycho man, riding my bike, chasing me in his Jack Sparrow costume. Several years ago, I spent about 6 months working as a cashier at Dollar Tree, that popular dollar store. After just a few months, I'd occasionally find myself working alone. We were always trying to hire more staff, but thankfully, when I was the only employee on duty, things rarely got out of hand. I mostly worked night shifts, typically until closing time at 10 p.m. in a rather quiet part of town. One particularly hushed night, I was indeed alone. Outside, a light, intermittent rain was falling. A detail I noticed because the front of the store, where the check lanes were, had large windows looking out onto the parking lot. After 8 p.m. that night, customers became scarce. The drizzle must have kept everyone indoors. I busied myself with small tasks, organizing shelves, and occasionally glancing at my phone. That final hour always seemed to drag, yet there was also a comforting anticipation of going home soon. On this specific night, after 9 p.m., not a single customer had entered, which suited me fine. I always felt a twinge of nervousness being the sole employee when someone came in late. But then, around 9:15, I spotted a car pulling into the wet parking lot. Until that moment, mine had been the only vehicle there. This new arrival was an older, dark blue 4-door sedan, and it parked in the closest space. I watched as a man emerged, a somewhat large fellow dressed in a blue raincoat and a gray and red baseball cap. He left his car and walked deliberately towards the store. Once inside, he ambled down one of the aisles. I remained at my register, scrolling through my phone. A few minutes later, I saw him wandering through the aisles, slowly making his way towards the front of the store. He seemed to be just casually looking around, but he held no items in his hands. Soon, he disappeared from my sight again. Then he slowly reappeared, moving towards the exit. I looked up, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes met. To be polite, I offered a small smile and said, "Hi." The man simply averted his gaze, then continued his slow walk to the exit. He left the store. I watched him get back into his car and drive away. I was alone once more. By now, it was about 9:30. I walked around the store ensuring everything was in order. Then decided to clean the floors so I could leave promptly at 10. Luckily, no one else came to shop while I did this, which took me until about 9:50. I returned to my check lane and spent the remaining 10 minutes on my phone, checking the time every 60 seconds, eager to close the doors right at the stroke of 10. At 9:58 p.m., I saw a car pull into the lot and a cold dread settled over me. It was the same distinct, older model sedan, unmistakable even in the dim light. The man who had left just half an hour earlier was back, but this time he parked differently. Instead of the spaces closer to the store, he pulled right up next to my car, effectively blocking it from my view against the curb. It struck me as incredibly odd. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe he dropped something inside and returned for it. But he didn't move. He just sat there, engine idling, a silent, unsettling presence. At exactly 10 p.m., it was time to lock up. I walked towards the front doors, my gaze glued to his car. A knot tightened in my stomach. Would he finally get out? Would he approach me? He didn't. I reached the doors, clicked the locks into place, and then headed to the back to clock out. When I returned to the front, a sliver of hope that he'd be gone flickered and died. His car was still there, a dark, ominous shape, and I could tell he was still inside. A wave of intense fear washed over me. Why was he parked right next to my car when there were dozens of empty spots closer to the entrance? Why was he even here at all? My gut screamed at me not to go outside. What if he was waiting? What if he planned something? I decided to stay put, hoping he'd eventually leave. I sat at my check lane, pretending to scroll through my phone, glancing up every minute or so. But he didn't budge. 30 agonizing minutes crawled by. It was 10:30 and the man remained, a silent sentinel beside my vehicle. That's when I knew I couldn't face this alone. I texted my best friend Brina, who lived nearby. After I quickly explained the terrifying situation, she immediately offered to come pick me up. I told her to pull right up to the front doors, explaining that my car and the man were tucked away further back in the lot. She said she was on her way, and 5 minutes later, I saw her headlights cut through the darkness. I practically sprinted to the front of the store, burst out the doors just as she pulled up, and scrambled into the passenger seat. She sped away, leaving the silent, watchful car behind. Thankfully, he didn't follow. We drove to Brina's house, then returned to the Dollar Tree a short while later. The man's car was finally gone. Brina dropped me off, and I quickly got into my vehicle and drove home. That night, I couldn't shake the chilling question: what was that man doing? Was he waiting for me? Did he have something planned? I'm just grateful I never had to find out. Music. I was only 16 when I landed a job at my local supermarket. It was a decent gig, and the work itself wasn't too demanding. Our town was quite pleasant, so most customers were either kindly seniors or affluent families. Sure, there were occasional incidents, a grumbling customer or a sneaky shoplifter, but nothing truly alarming. I stayed there for nearly 3 years. Until I turned 18, until the night of June 24th, 2008. That evening, I was on an 8-hour shift, set to end at 11 p.m. The first few hours passed uneventfully, but then around 6, the sky opened up. It wasn't just rain, it was a torrential downpour. When my meal break arrived, I realized with a groan that I'd left my wallet in my car. I decided against rummaging for a forgotten umbrella and foolishly made a dash for it. Big mistake. It was only a 10-second sprint to the front doors. But by the time I was back inside, I was utterly drenched. I grabbed a quick snack and headed upstairs to dry off. About half an hour later, I returned to the floor, still feeling damp. I stepped through the break room door and surveyed the store. It was almost deserted. I walked towards customer service, spotting only 1 or 2 other shoppers. It was strange to see so few people at 7:30, but the store must have kept everyone home. I settled back into my check stand and started chatting with my coworker, Maria. We talked about her kids and served the rare, soggy customer, most of whom had realized they were out of essentials like milk or toilet paper. The lights flickered occasionally, a minor detail I attributed to the storm, and I could hear distant thunder rumbling. "I'll refill the shelves tomorrow," I murmured, then walked to the shopping racks. I glanced outside. In the distance beyond the store, 2 dogs were tearing into a knocked-over dumpster. Behind them, a large bush area was moving, not randomly, but with slow, deliberate jerks. Suddenly, both dogs spun around, baring their teeth and growling savagely at the bush. Just then, Maria's voice pierced the air. "Joanna, come and help me." "What the hell?" I muttered, my mind reeling. I walked towards her, confused. Those dogs had simply vanished, and I was almost certain I'd seen something dart out of that bush, too fast to make out. By the time we'd restacked the aisles and returned to our posts, it was 15 minutes past closing time. We called Victor, our night cleaning guy. He arrived and began mopping the floors. Victor lived in a small garage behind the supermarket, so he often served as our handyman too. He came to mop right next to my stand, pausing to ask, "You look a little worried." "Good." "No, it's nothing," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." "Okay, I'll make it quick then." "Thanks," I said, starting to pack up my things. Victor went to finish his work. He was always kind to me. We'd even dated for a while. Anyway, as I stepped outside beside the exit for a smoke, I noticed the empty highway flanked by dark woods. The flickering streetlights cast an even eerier glow. I lit my cigarette, and in that brief flash I saw them, two enormous yellow eyes staring directly at me from that bush. The eyes blinked slowly and my heart stopped beating. "You forgot your phone on the desk, Joanna." Victor's shout jolted me back. Something primal kicked in, and I bolted inside at full speed. The moment I slammed the door shut behind me, a massive bolt of lightning struck, plunging the store into darkness. "Bloody hell, what a night," Maria exclaimed, lighting candles and placing them on stands. Victor sat near a window lighting a cigarette. Breaking the sudden silence, I spoke. "Something is out there." What did you say?" Maria asked, startled. "Something is outside," I repeated, my voice trembling. "I think something ate those dogs, or I don't know." "What are you saying, Joanna? What dogs?" "Guys, believe me, something evil is out there. Some kind of creature. It has eyes like a cat, but they're huge." "It's probably a cat, you spooked yourself," Victor said, dismissing my fear. "No, Victor, I know what I saw." "Fine," he sighed, "I'll go check it out." "No, don't," but he ignored me. Victor grabbed his mop in one hand and a flashlight in the other, heading out. Maria, curious and perhaps a little braver than me, followed him. With no other choice, I had to follow them too. We stepped outside, and I pointed to the bush. Victor poked it cautiously with the end of the mop, then shone his flashlight onto it. The instant the beam hit, my blood ran cold. A partial head of a cat-like creature was visible in the foliage. Its enormous eyes watched us unblinking while its sharp, long ears sprang out like antlers. "What the hell is that?" I whispered. "Hello, kitty, kitty, come here, are you hungry?" Maria called out, her voice oddly cheerful. "Maria, don't get too close to it." But Maria wasn't listening. She took another step towards the bush. Just then the power surged back on, and the huge lamppost directly above the bush flared to life. We all froze, numb with terror. Standing behind the bush was a colossal creature, almost as big as a lion but with a strangely slender body, completely hairless like a sphinx cat, yet with patches of hair on its face and a thin layer of fur around its neck. It had a huge drooling jaw that opened, and it licked its lips with massive, sharp teeth. It was a four-legged animal, but it stood upright on 2 feet like a monstrous werewolf. Victor, screaming in pure fear, flung the mop at it and bolted for the store. I did the same, but before Maria could turn and run, the creature lunged. It sank its razor-sharp claws into her flesh, grabbing her with its other hand. Then with one swift, brutal motion, it tore her body in two. It was a horrifying sight, but there was no way I could have helped her. Trying would have meant the same gruesome fate. Victor and I scrambled inside, slamming the glass door shut, but I knew it wouldn't be enough to hold back that beast. It devoured our colleague, wiped the blood from its lips with a single claw, and then slowly vanished into the darkness of the woods. The police investigated Maria's death as a missing person case. Her body was never found, and it never will be. I just pray that none of you ever cross paths with that creature in your life. Music. A few months ago, I was doing some shopping at my local dollar store. I frequent the place, picking up all sorts of odds and ends. I don't mind that the quality is often cheap, the savings are worth it, and the items I do buy always serve their purpose. My apartment is conveniently within walking distance, making it a quick 10-minute stroll to the store. One late Saturday afternoon, I set out for a few necessities. The dollar store is smaller than most and rarely busy. As I walked in, I noticed only a couple of other shoppers scattered about. I grabbed a basket and began my hunt. I hadn't gone far, though, before something truly bizarre caught my eye. In the back corner of the store, a man stood openly drinking a beer. He was dressed rather oddly, a green sweater and some kind of dress pants. He didn't look homeless, but he certainly wasn't clean-cut either. It was so strange, almost comical, to see him just casually sipping from a beer bottle, not even pretending to shop. I even spotted another open bottle peeking from his pocket. I stifled a laugh and smiled to myself. He wasn't looking at me, but another shopper walking past gave him a wide, bewildered stare. I continued browsing nearby, but my curiosity got the better of me, and I kept glancing over to see if he was still there. The dollar store definitely didn't sell beer, so he must have brought his own. Soon enough, I heard a store employee approach him. They told the man he had to leave, explaining that drinking wasn't allowed inside. He wasn't happy. A short, heated argument ensued before he stormed out. He didn't seem terribly drunk, but his behavior was certainly out of line. Perhaps it was some kind of bizarre prank. I finished my shopping, grabbed about 5 items, and headed to the checkout. The cashier bagged everything I paid, and then I left, starting my walk home. I was about halfway back, strolling along the sidewalk, when I saw him again up ahead. It was the same man who'd been drinking in the store, now looking even angrier. He stood by a mailbox, still nursing one of his beers. I noticed his eyes fix on me as I got closer. When I was about 10 feet away, his gaze hadn't wavered. I offered a friendly smile and asked how he was doing. His angry expression remained, and then he simply cursed at me. I was genuinely surprised. I decided to just walk past him and say nothing more. But as I started to move away, his voice cut through the air. "Where do you think you're going?" I told him I was walking home, but as I spoke, I heard his footsteps closing in behind me. I spun around to face him, and his anger seemed to have intensified. I told him I didn't want any trouble, that I was just trying to get home. He started cursing at me again. Now I was convinced he must be drunk. His words weren't slurred, but there was no other explanation for his erratic, threatening behavior. I turned to continue walking home, but then he grabbed my shoulder and violently tugged me back. That's when I ripped myself free and started sprinting. He began to chase after me, thankfully not very fast. I ran all the way back to my apartment building and scrambled inside, locking the door behind me. Luckily, the man stopped chasing me just before he reached my building. I had never felt unsafe in my neighborhood before that day, but after that terrifying incident, I realized I needed to be much more careful. I still don't know what that man's problem was, but I pray I never see him again. Music.